As we work through this series, we'll be breaking down ASC 842 step by step. And I think that by the end, you'll have a clear and practical understanding of the fundamentals to account for your leases. But we do need to acknowledge that lease accounting has a lot of moving parts. There are definitions, some time value of money concepts, different types of leases, contract changes, and all of this leads to several things we need to calculate and track. So before we jump into the details, it helps to take a step back and look at the simple framework underneath it all. And the good news here is that at its core, we have a pretty simple framework underlying ASC 842. As a quick example, let's take a basic lease of office space. In that transaction, the lessee gets the use of an asset, in this case the office, and makes periodic payments to the lessor. Now compare that to a situation where the lessee buys the office on credit. You go to the bank, take out a mortgage, and purchase the office. You still have use of the asset, and you make regular periodic payments, only this time to the bank. We're not saying these two transactions are identical, because a lease gives you the right to use the asset rather than ownership. But from a big picture perspective, the economic substance is very similar. In both cases, you're making periodic payments for the ability to use the office space. And this leads us to the key point. Under ASC 842, lease accounting starts from a balance sheet perspective that looks very similar to a finance transaction. We recognize an asset and a liability for our obligation to make future payments, much like acquiring an asset with borrowed funds. That framework is the foundation for everything else we'll build throughout this series. So what that means in practice is that when we have a lease and we're not using a practical expedient, we'll record an asset which we'll refer to as a right of use asset and a lease liability on the balance sheet. That liability will be split between current and long-term portions, similar to how we present other long-term liabilities. We then recognize the cost of the lease on our income statement over time, using specific mechanics required by ASC 842. The calculation steps differ from an actual purchase on credit, but the overall pattern of the accounting ends up looking very similar. Now earlier I mentioned practical expedients, and ASC 842 includes a few of these to help simplify the accounting when the cost of detailed tracking outweighs the benefit. One of the most common is the short-term lease expedient. Under ASC 842, a short-term lease is a lease with a term of 12 months or less, and no purchase option that we are reasonably certain to exercise. We'll look at purchase options and this idea of reasonably certain later, but when a lease meets that definition, we can make a policy election by class of underlying asset to skip the full balance sheet recognition. Instead of recording a right of use asset and a lease liability, we generally expense the lease payments straight line over the lease term, with any variable payments recognized in the period incurred. We'll work through an example later in the series, but the main idea is that short-term leases receive a much simpler treatment. But most of the leases you deal with will run longer than 12 months, so the short-term lease exemption will not apply. In those cases, we'll follow the full ASC 842 model. That means recognizing a right of use asset and a lease liability on the balance sheet, with that liability split between current and long-term portions. We then recognize the cost of the lease over time. So as we move through the rest of this series and start calculating initial measurements and subsequent journal entries, keep the core idea in mind. We're treating the lease as if we purchased the asset on credit, and the accounting follows a similar overall pattern.